the moon landing is real, explain the shadows. If the Earth is really round, why don't we just walk around off balance all day going whoa, 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 whoa? If Area 51 has nothing to hide, explain Kamala's laugh. Just as Will Smith said after he smacked Chris Rock in the mouth, welcome to Earth. Today we're talking about wild conspiracy theories with history buff and hilarious comedian KP Burke. And this is a bit too much.
It's I'm a bug chaser, so time is being managed.
Are you okay? Are you feeling all right? You had a hectic fucking night.
It's been good, man. It's been good to see. I think I have one of the worst jobs for a comic to have because it comes with emergency calls. So I do tree work for Morris County,
Right.
and then it gets sent in for like the phone ring. I worked 30 hours overtime this past week, and then I still snuck into feature on Thursday at Stress.
Yeah.
So that was my one night off.
Appropriately named club for what you're going through.
Oh, it was good, man. It was good, but it's always it's a fun balancing. I've quit a couple of jobs because it didn't work with comedy, and then these guys all work with me for it. So
Right. Oh, that's good.
But
Yeah.
yeah, then I have no car for the moment. That's fun too.
Right.
Yeah. So it's I didn't mean to be so stressed out when I got here.
It's all right.
But
You're allowed to be stressed out.
There's something soothing about Ken Krantz right now. I'm going to call it a secondhand high.
He does.
I'm not high, believe it or not.
Well, I'm drinking.
I can't tell when you are or aren't, by the way.
No, but I can't. I don't
You're
know
pretty-
if
yeah,
I
you're
can
pretty
tell
mellow.
anymore.
You have microdose vibes, you know, at all times. It's like a little high.
I look high in every single picture I've ever taken, and I'm not but I can't even tell when I was or wasn't anymore.
I had somebody this weekend tell me I look like you.
Yeah.
That same comic I was telling you about before.
Oh,
He's like,
Dave.
He's like, you guys look alike. I was like, I don't think we do.
There's a Jewish and Italian thing because Justin Silver
Yeah,
has
the
that great
noses.
bit.
The thing is a nose. Yeah.
It's a pretty easy thing to identify.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear Justin Silver's bit about it though?
About Jewish and Italian. No.
Yeah, Justin's a good dude, man. He but his bit is because he's like, I've seen women like curl their hair while he's on stage, like they just lose their mind.
Yeah,
over him.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
a
He's
fucking
good looking guy.
heartthrob.
Yeah.
And his bit that he had that I thought was great. He's like, yeah. So I'm Jewish, which is good for show business, but I look Italian, which is great because if you're Italian and you look Jewish, everyone just thinks you're sick all the time. Which I thought was one of the funniest jokes I've ever heard. He's really like I do mean this. I think he's underrated. He's
great. He's very funny. Yeah, well, thanks for commenting. You came to this fucking crazy ass building. You know, I never talk about it, but we do this podcast out of this building. It's like a giant. What is this actually qualified as? Like a mall / business center?
How soon do you want me to go full Alex Jones on this?
Well, I wanted you here to talk about conspiracy theories. So if you have some about this first, go for it.
So it's the theories are fun, and then there's conspiracy awarists. Ken's been on the show.
Dude,
American
I already
Loser.
tell you're so deep. Just that alone, what you just said,
sucks, dude.
like, oh shit.
Well, you're in Bell Labs right now. So Bell Labs did a little bit of everything. This was a lot of the technology for World War II era stuff moving forward.
Yeah.
Now, the old place that they used to record at, which Ken also went to, you remember the old shitty building Ming used
In Red Bank?
Eatontown.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The Eatontown one, which that building is probably condemned now. That was within sight of Fort Monmouth, which is where they helped develop the atomic bomb. So that's all stuff that they're involved, and Bell Labs stuff for the radio and everything. That was also so underneath here where you have all that weird hidden structure that everybody's talking about. It is scary down there, by the way, and that is a bomb shelter in case this place got nuked because they knew it was a development center for.
Oh, okay, and that
it's terrifying. And then also one time I was here for a Jewish wedding and the Jewish Beach Boys played. So I've seen a lot of shit in this building.
Wait, what are the Jewish Beach Boys?
I wish that I could fully have understood it.
They're just fully clothed at the beach. It's got a lot of suntan lotion on their noses.
They're called the Deal Boys. Inside baseball.
They're all out there trying to catch gefilte fish.
Yeah. The Jewish Beach Boys.
But they had it set up here, so we had to podcast from downstairs underneath this place, and that's when you're like, wow, there's a lot of weird caverns to get lost in, man.
Yeah.
So, but Jersey specifically, also this one they'll tie in Fort Monmouth, which is where the old one was, the old studio rather. That's where the Rosenbergs got in trouble for stealing information about the nuclear bomb. So,
okay.
Yes, Russia, the USSR became a nuclear power because of information given to them from Fort Monmouth. So Jersey ruined the world, and we're in the shadow of it right now.
Yeah, I mean, Jersey's continuously ruining.
I don't know, but we got nice beaches, so I feel like it balances out.
Do you have nice beaches, or do you have beaches? Like, yeah, like according to the rest of the country and world that has beaches, do you have nice beaches, or do you just have beaches?
No,
'cause that's a win on the East Coast. Like, to have beaches is a nice thing.
No, I think we have some really nice.
Well, what
beaches.
are nice beaches in Jersey compared to not nice beaches?
Well, have you
further
have
south
you,
again,
any
right?
of your have you been to any of your beaches over there in Long Island?
Oh, they're horrible. Oh,
Yeah.
They're fucking.
No, Asbury Park's got a great.
Listen, I grew up near Rockaway, so it's like hypodermic needles in the fucking sand. You know, so I don't know.
We have those beaches too. That's Sandy Hook. Yeah, we have those beaches too.
Yeah.
But like Cape May, New Jersey,
right,
has some of the nicest beaches in the country. I think like those are amazing.
Mm-hmm. You know what I think of though? I know this is. I mean, it's obviously a whole shore of beaches, but I think of just like, you know, like seaside. You know, I think of that when I think like Jersey Shore. I think of like Jersey Shore, not like the whole actual shore of beautiful, like where there are nice beaches.
There's some straight animals in Seaside, though. When I worked in the beer business. Of course. We used to work early hours there, and you'd literally, there'd be people that didn't stop for cars on 35. It was mind. I'm
like, what you mean, just walking across it?
They just didn't look at all. They're pilled out of their minds. It's terrifying.
That's what we called it.
It's a drunken pirate town. It's Tortuga from Pirates of the Caribbean, but everyone's underage, so it's got an Epstein Island vibe too. But it's
nice.
It's terrifying, man. But yeah, this building there's some weird stuff here. I've been in here trying to do a podcast, and then there's jackhammers going off, and there's excavation going on. And that's how solid this building is that it reverberates through everything. So
Yeah.
And you're the ballsiest guy because you do it right here in the front, man. No one else tried this up front.
Yeah, you know, you can't see it with the cameras, but there's a glass pane right here. I closed the fucking shades, but there's like a lot of times there's like kids just like knocking on the door, you know, or you hear people.
Yeah, they'll gather around and try and peer in, and it's like you're obviously not seeing someone famous.
Which only takes 1 second of looking to know.
Yeah,
you know,
you're seeing someone's famous signatures on the wall. That's pretty much the
they're actually not looking at us at all.
Yeah. They're like, oh, is that a Lost Boys poster?
I got Kiefer Sutherland, the Kiefer Sutherland signatures on that wall.
Are those the Jewish Beach Boys?
When we started the podcast, too, the most famous guy was our sound engineer. Like, oh, shit, it's PM Dawn's kid. That's why. What's he up to, man? Remember them?
So, dude, I wanted to have you in talk about conspiracy theories because I'm always fascinated by conspiracy theories. I'm fascinated by, one, conspiracy theorists. People, I mean, like real tinfoil hat people, like, you know, like the people who have like the wild ones, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm also fascinated by the ones that I hear them, I'm like, that sounds real. But I never fucking know. I don't know how to fact check thoroughly on any of these things besides a little Google search. So every time I hear a conspiracy theory, I'm like, that sounds like it could be a thing. Right? Like, I never actually know. I'm like, you know what? Let's get someone who's actually like a history buff, because you are a huge history buff, right? Like, this is something you're very knowledgeable about.
By the way, the best joke ever on the show was done by Ken off the cuff. It was the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. Because sometimes history is just inadvertently funny.
Yeah, sure.
And it was Jewish seamstresses were locked into this place because they were trying to sneak out early to break out of their shift, and this is like the real the dirt poor, the jungle, that type of New York, where the muckrakers were going undercover to figure out how bad the workers' rights abuses were.
And this is where exactly?
This is in Manhattan.
In Manhattan. Okay.
So this was the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. It caught on fire, and because it was almost all Jewish employees, and the Jewish owners of the factory had locked the doors so that they couldn't get out early. Like, we don't unlock you until your shift is over. And we're sitting there, we're telling the horrible story about these people burning to death and not being able to escape. And then Ken just goes, Jews in their locks. How do you go back to telling an episode? You can't go back into the story.
Yeah, you can't go back into the.
I forgot I said that.
Part. It's my favorite joke from the show. It really is.
My stepdaughter recently was learning about that in school. the factory fire. And I was like, oh, I did a whole podcast. It'll teach you all about it.
Listen to my joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's running material.
I was like, do you want to listen? She was like, no.
Your daughter.
No, I want to learn the actual things. I don't want to hear you.
Yeah.
I don't want to listen to anything you have
want
to
to hear
say.
me goofing on these kids getting killed?
Like, I killed. Right.
But I mean, obviously that was a tragedy, but back then you only lived to like 15, 16. So it was like,
dude, if that was your logic, you could explain away any genocide with like, I mean, come on, how long were they going to live anyway?
It's like when everybody says the old New York is back, like post-COVID, remember that? People are like, oh yeah, the old New York's coming back. Like, no, it's not, dude. You're talking like 70s, 80s New York. That's what you're looking for. If you go back to like Angela's Ashes, like Godfather 2, New York.
Well, people don't know with New York. People don't really know what the fuck they're talking about when they talk about what it was, what it is. Because again, how many versions of New York have there been? And there's a lot of fucked up versions of New York.
100%.
You know, there's different eras of why it was fucked up, right? Like the 70s and 80s. I mean, are they saying that? They're saying that as like because of the crime. You're saying, right? Like people who are referring to the 70s and 80s saying the old New York is back because of the crime.
And I think people want to feel like they're nostalgic for something they weren't there for.
For what, the heroin in Times Square?
A weird thing to be nostalgic.
Yeah,
for,
it's not.
Right?
It wasn't a good time in New York.
Right. Yeah,
you know. But it's funny because you just, you're out in the city. Like I'm out in the city, like fucking running spots. I feel like it's the same New York. Like from my experience. For my nearly 40 years, it's the same New York in my whole 40 years that I feel. Maybe not when I was a little kid and I didn't really know what was going on. So like not in the 80s. But New York doesn't feel any different to me. I know things are happening. I get it. But I don't know. 20 years ago, I was seeing people shit in the subway. And there's still people shitting in the subway. I got jumped on the A train in New York once at like 4 a.m. going in because I used to intern for Opie and Anthony, and I'm on my way in for it's like 4:30 in the morning. I got jumped on the train. I can still get jumped on the train. It happened back then. It happens now. That was like that was 20 years ago.
And if it was O&A too, I'm sure they wanted to know details.
Yeah, I didn't ever told O&A didn't know. I didn't even want to tell. They didn't even know I was starting stand up because I was so afraid of getting called out.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like I didn't tell anyone anything.
Where you're like, oh, Anthony, there's a great place for you to take some pictures over here. Where I got
it's perfect angle. Perfect angle. You get the perfect shot. Yeah. But people talk about New York like it was so amazing for them at some point. I'm like, it was always fucked up, right? I mean, like when was New York City not fucked up?
Isn't it like you just what's it called? Pollyanna theory. That if you're a happy person, you remember things as better than what they were.
Yeah, sure.
And then if you're a depressed person, you remember it more accurately.
Yeah.
That's what's sad. You think they'd be like, oh, you remember it worse. You're like, no, you're actually depressed people have a more accurate memory.
The cynicism is helpful because it's more of a realistic view. Man. Right? Because I don't know. I just think about I'm talking maybe 20 years ago, let's say. Just running around New York, getting into trouble. It's not, and that's New York. A lot of some people are talking about only 20 years ago. They're talking about 20, 30 years ago, and they're like, "Oh, now it's so fucked up." I'm like, it's never not been, But I think people like I don't know if this is necessarily the Pollyanna theory, but this is like, I think people in general just only see issues through what their life experience is, right? Like same thing with politics. Like most people are voting based on what just their own experience is. They're not really voting for the masses. They're voting for themselves, right? It's natural human instinct to want to protect you and yours, right? Or like what you're close to. That's what, like when someone votes.
It's cyclical too.
What's that?
It's cyclical. Cyclical. There's like the fun thing with history, because history and conspiracy go, that they're like strange bedfellows, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like whenever somebody says like politics today, like if that was what you were getting at, I think I was tracking.
No, I'm talking about people's point of view on politics, not how politics necessarily are and how the politicians are. I'm saying how people.
Oh, because they were always bad too, was what I was going to say about.
Oh,
New
of
York
course,
thing.
Yeah. No, but because my point is what people see things as, the rose-colored glasses people have, and how they vote is my point, really.
Right
like,
on.
You know what I mean? Like, you're only really worried about you and your family and what your own life experiences are, right? Like, you're not, that's what you're voting for. It's like either your taxes, your social issues, your thing. It's not like you're really going like, what's best for the country when you vote, right? Like, you're thinking what's best for the country in your mind is just what your own life experience is.
what's best for the country would never even enter into my head.
But don't you think people think like that? They're like, oh, this is best because this is what I need, or this is what my friends need. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what they really feel like they're voting. They feel like they're voting for the good of everyone, but they're really voting for what they feel they, would benefit them and their friends or their family. It's not really this like, this thing where they feel like they're contributing.
It's a private thing. Yeah, voting will be a private thing, and they're like, all right, so I'm going to say all the right things in public, and then when I'm behind the curtain, I'm going to just, I'll slide one in there, and I don't really care as much about this issue as I pretend I do on Facebook.
Yeah.
And then conversely, as comics, then you deal with the people that. Is there anything worse than the people that are offended for people that aren't in the room, where they're like, I'm going to represent.
Dear God,
yeah. I'm also, to be honest, I think I'm enough of an asshole that I would vote against my own interest if it fucked someone I didn't like worse.
It is weird. I was startled to see you and hear you singing From the River to the Sea. I didn't understand. I personally was wondering what was going on at home, if everything was all right.
Who can I fuck over with this? So like one of the reasons why conspiracy theories fascinate me is because they, it's not like the idea of conspiracy theories are new, right? Like, I mean, there's been like conspiracy theories since like Illuminati, right? Like that, or probably before that. But like, that's one that always fascinates me because people still talk about an evolution of that like it's a new thing. Like the idea of like a shadow government or like a Freemason thing. People talk about
Knights Templar, right?
Yeah, right. Like, how far does that go back? That Knights Templar is a
They're Knights Templar that I think ended in they actually say that was Friday the 13th. There's a lot of like one of my favorite ones we ever did. We debunked a bunch of conspiracy theorists about the Titanic, because there's nothing. I don't like being right. There's nothing worse than like, actually, there's nothing worse than being that guy.
Yeah.
But like sometimes you have to be like, listen, I like history too much for you guys to just
wait. Explain the Titanic one. What's the Titanic?
Well, there's a couple Titanic ones. I'm seeing it again too because memes are. There's a lot of people that will say, "Oh, I read that," and you're like, "No, you saw a meme."
Yeah,
right.
And they were saying like,
"See, that's how everyone consumes everything."
Yeah, you don't read things on TikTok.
The only person who was everyone who was against the Federal Reserve was on board the Titanic, and you're like, "All right, that's not entirely true."
Right?
That one.
How would they?
It was an insurance scam. There was another ship. Yeah. They changed the ship numbers, but my favorite one was they said that the ship's numbers for the Titanic, when you saw it in a mirror, because I guess they were working on it, if you read it backwards, it spelt out "no Pope," and that's why all the Irish Catholics died on board. And I was like, all right, come on, guys. Come on.
Also, why would you, if you were going to do that, why would you make it so obvious and spell out "no Pope" backwards?
It's,
why would you actually put that in there for someone to discover later?
Who had a giant Titanic-sized mirror for you to even test that in?
Yeah. Right.
I think it was when, I forget what the deal was, but they debunked almost everything. And then there's other ones where like they're still in denial about, which trips me out. That's, because I've seen Wikipedia, not that it shouldn't change because it's obviously edited by users, but I've seen info that I used to be able to get like with 2 or 3 clicks, because that's how my show started. It was too many Wikipedia wormholes, and then now they've kind of closed the gap on some stuff, because I think people are. Whether we make fun of him, like don't get me wrong, I make fun of Alex Jones a lot.
Yeah, right.
But there's part of me where I'm like, I love him. His problem that I always found on the Joe Rogan stuff, because that's what a lot of the conspiracy people get labeled as, and then conspiracy people will like my show, and then they're like, oh, so you're talking about like real history, you're not talking about like Tartaria yet, or, or the Nephilim or whatever. And I was like, I don't even know what you're saying right now.
Right.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
But what Alex Jones will do that screws him up is he'll say 18 thoughts in one sentence. And if you take the first 6 thoughts and read about them, you're like, all right, that's an hour's worth.
He was
of info.
tracking something. Yeah.
He was there, and then all of a sudden he went somewhere else immediately.
Well, isn't that kind of always the thing with people who are like even with people who are like have big conspiracies? There's not no truth usually. I mean, a flat earther is one thing, right? But there's not usually no truth in what they're saying. There's a nugget of something there to look into that they just fucking go wild with.
My favorite this is my absolute favorite one, was white liberals who are anti-conspiracy. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, right? And then Kyrie Irving's like, yeah, Earth is flat and I'm not taking the vaccine. Everyone's like, well, Kyrie has a right to his opinion. and hopefully we can get him back for the playoffs.
Yeah, some people are so liberal that they can't even get out of their own way in defending the thing that would be anti all their beliefs because they have to defend everyone.
Oh, 100%.
Right. You can be so liberal that you just feel like you have to defend everyone, even if it's people that would completely contradict your whole worldview of being liberal.
This pit bull has bitten 4 babies, but listen, every life
the rapper
should be
pit bull.
shared.
Yeah. I heard that. The rapper pit bull.
Mr. Worldwide.
4 babies. Yeah. They're all in Miami.
Oh, my God.
Do you have a favorite conspiracy theory? Like, is there one that rattles around your head the most?
We found this one because it's never, what I always liked was we never found the exact, I never found what I was looking for. I went down a different wormhole.
Right.
So it's like, I know Ken's done acid. You've done acid before?
I have not done acid.
Okay.
We were just talking about drugs.
Yeah, finish your drink.
Not yet, you have.
I don't like how you're like, when I said no, you're like, you're a fucking lame piece of shit.
Well, the acid thing is like you'll focus on something and then you can come back to it later. I found, I don't know, tell me what if my thing's unique or whatever, but you can go back to a thought you were having earlier, but you're going to go down like 4 or 5. Like I remember sitting there and I was like, oh, I like the colors on this thing right now. And then all of a sudden I'm like staring in the mirror and I was like, I'm a butcher from 18th century London. And you just kind of lose your mind for a little bit, but you can come back. So that was my Wikipedia wormholes. This one tripped me out. It was a J. Edgar Hoover. We were trying to track down the joke that he dressed up as a woman all the time, right? And that was the big thing. They said he was gay. That's why the G-men all had like perfectly combed hair, and they weren't allowed to have beards. Right. Like back then, you think of like a federal marshal or something, and you kind of picture like a Wyatt Earp type.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and then so J. Edgar Hoover, like, all right, he really likes clean-cut guys. They're all young, boyish. He never got married. He lived with his mother his entire life. And I'm trying to track down. There's a great joke in Naked Gun 33 1/3 where it's like Wyatt Earp's like gun is on the wall, and then like J. Edgar Hoover has like a pair of fishnets on the wall, like all retired. So I'm trying to figure out the truth on that joke. And then we went down the wormhole, and they were like, oh, there's a sex tape involving J. Edgar Hoover. And I was like, I was like, oh my God, if they have this guy having presumably gay sex.
Right.
And this is the head of the FBI. Like that would have been the biggest scandal ever because the guy's been in power since Coolidge. Right. And again, like we don't realize how far in a very short period of time we've come in terms of gay acceptance. Right. Right now, you just be like, yeah, of course he would. Why
right. Like if that was released now, it would have zero impact.
Yeah, the only way it
would be like, cool.
Yeah, it would be scandalous if it was monetized. That would be where the scandal would come.
Yeah.
It would be like, don't shame him. Don't shame J. Edgar.
Right. He's clapping cheeks and handcuffs. But the sex tape wasn't of him. It was they were investigating this woman named Inga Arvad, who was like a smoke show Danish reporter, like the Megyn Kelly of Denmark. And so she, I think they all look like her over there, though. Actually, maybe that's not maybe she was just like the girl next door in Denmark, but they all look the same.
Right. Yeah, Megyn Kelly is the them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But she got invited to the 1936 Olympics and got a one-on-one interview with Hitler, which was super rare at the time. And so they're tracking her, and then when she's in America, they think she's a Nazi sympathizer, and they think that she's got ties to Hitler, and they start following her around, and she's hooking up with a young naval officer in a hotel room, and they don't have footage of it. They have audio recordings of the sex and everything, and it's maybe some pictures and stuff like that too. And they keep following Inga Arvad for years. They realize, all right, she's not actually a Nazi sympathizer, but they kept the tapes. They're not going to burn these.
She's hot.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, we're going to keep these. We got
news. Fuck, though.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Turns out, because shortly thereafter, like the name was already established, but they didn't understand just how powerful JFK was going to be, and it was JFK on the sex tape. So he was the young naval officer.
He's like, you're getting fucked by JFK. Like, how do you know? Like, just his voice? Is there anything identifiable that
they were tracking him at the time too? Because I think they were at the time they were like, oh yeah, Jack Kennedy's son, who's in. He was like, they were bringing him in early on. If you want to talk about like the idea of a deep state, like they were bringing him in for like different talks with different dignitaries and stuff like
sure,
that.
Like seating him.
Yeah, he was a handsome guy, came from a wealthy family, and then J. Edgar Hoover, like I think Kennedy was sitting there, goes, yeah, and I'm gonna have the true power here, and I'm gonna be the conscience of America, and these 3-letter organizations aren't gonna be able to control us, and I'm gonna be able to expose a lot of the things going on in secret. And this
is JFK saying this.
This is him saying this because he took over for Eisenhower, who said Eisenhower's farewell speeches about the military-industrial complex. So that's he's talking about all the shit that we're dealing with right now with the idea of Blackwater, Vanguard, all these other things.
Yeah.
So long story short is that I think Eisenhower said that stuff. JFK's like, all right, there's a lot of truth to what he said because I'm also a military guy too, and I'm getting a little bit nervous about all this weird stuff going on that we're not really Operation Paperclip's going. He was going to talk about things that he could expose, and then Hoover's like, listen, I have a sex tape of you banging a Nazi, and you're not going to say shit ever about what I do, right? And then he goes, yeah, Hoover's cool. We'll let him do what he wants. Everybody else is a dick though. But that one blew my mind because that one. They had dirt on him. So if you think about it right now, and I'll hit my bottom line on this one immediately because I'm ranting. I'm sorry.
No, good. I'm fascinated by this shit.
If you were to if we ran Ken Krantz for public office,
we should,
right? Ken, we'd be like, Ken, what skeletons do you have in your closet? And Ken's got some skeletons.
Yeah, but I feel like Ken talks about them all.
Yeah, and I'd be like, well, listen to episode 6.
I haven't known Ken long. The second I met him, he was like, oh, dude, listen to everything I'm going through right now. I knew him for 3 minutes. I was like, please co-host the show. This is incredible.
The tricky thing is how far back. So Kennedy was like, all right, I'm finally in a position to do something. And he's like, right. What dirt do they have? And you're like, oh, dude, they've had dirt on you from before you held elected office.
Yeah, especially since he's been slinging that dick so much.
JFK
was such a fucking pimp.
They were bad that way, yeah.
I would love to hear the tape because, JFK was probably like, you can't prove it's me. And then they played the tape and you just hear like, Era, I don't like wearing condoms. I promise I'll pull out, Era.
right. Yeah. He's just being a sleazeball,
Oh, dude.
But I mean, that's a guy who there was so much conspiracy around, though. Right? Like, how many different JFK, like, even his death is shrouded in conspiracy. Like, everything with JFK is conspiracy.
It's why it's crazy. Literally everything is. Dad was a bootlegger.
Yeah.
His
dad was a bootlegger, right.
His wife's father was known as Blackjack Bouvier. And I think he had some unscrupulous business contacts too. That's the craziest one when everyone's taking credit for killing you. They're like it was the mafia. No, it was us, the CIA. And Lee Harvey Oswald's like, guys, I pull off. Come on, guys.
It's like, guys, lone shooter. All right, it's a good fucking shot.
Oh man.
If you're the actual guy, you're like, what the fuck? But like his death, right? Like, I mean, everyone there's people
Jack
still
Ruby
fucking
talk him a couple of days later.
What's that?
Jack Ruby kills Lee Harvey
right,
Oswald
and then the way he died, yeah.
David Ferry, the guy that Pesci played in the movie, he showed up dead too.
What's your take on that then? Like, because clearly, I mean, it's on film, right? Him getting shot by people.
Oh, it's a Zapruder film, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why the Trump one was so strange to me. Just because you're saying you're like we should be past this for like security purposes, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's
that is wild, man. That just fucking was right out there. That shit is wild, and that's going to be another conspiracy down the line. It already is. It already is.
Minutes.
Within minutes, yeah. Right, because you hear about I heard about Obama going to do like Mark Maron's podcast, and they went to it, and he was like, they went to my house 6 times and checked the roofs, like, you know what I mean, like something that little. But then you have like this guy who is this, controversial, hated figure out in open, and like things were not checked, So like, or were things checked in some? Is it just easy to get up on that building? We're like, I.
But then I've also heard the conspiracy going the other way, like the Trump did it.
Right.
Like, in order to...
Yeah, but that's fucking wild, man. Like, shoot me in the ear? What a... I mean, he turned right into it.
No, I'm not saying... I know. Like, I wouldn't trust,
But that's why I find conspiracy theory so fucking fascinating, because, like, to have that thought, right? Okay, now, we're going to set this up. You're going to need to just... You're going to need to just turn your head like this, and I'm going to get you right at the top of your ear.
Yeah.
Who the fuck would sign up for that? Like, who would get shot in the top of the ear?
His tick is what saved him. That was the craziest part. He has that
what?
weird tick. He has a weird tick. He goes, what do we do? He does
right. The way he leans his head and he puts his hands up.
It literally saved his life. That was
one of the most irritating things about him. It just saved his life.
It was insane on that one, man. The in real time we were seeing that one get spun up because I saw what Ken was talking about. And then I saw what you were talking about where people are like, oh, this was a planned thing. And then people are like, look at his ear right now. And you're like, dude, there's more magic. If they were showing like, oh, how did a 78-year-old man's ear heal like overnight? Like, he's going to have access to stuff. You can make it like,
have you not heard of like ear piercings?
Yeah.
They're not that fucking severe.
It's
a bullet, but it's a fucking ear hole. Yeah. You know what I mean?
He has access to alien technology, probably.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me, man. There's more magic in Nancy Pelosi's neck than there is on the
how's it still holding up her head? You know, that's a conspiracy theory.
100%, dude. Now, she's the one I'm scared of. Actually, I would say I'm afraid of her and Hillary Clinton. That's the two people I don't think you want to mess with.
Yeah,
they don't have any reason to. I have no power yet.
The idea that somebody said it was like a blood pack. Like, oh, look, he did that. I'm like, he held his ear because he got shot in the fucking ear. Like, what do you mean? Wouldn't you hold your ear if you got shot in the ear? People were like, oh, that wasn't, a gunshot. Like, he like did this and like it spilled the blood. I'm like, come on, man. You're searching so hard for that conspiracy.
Conspiracy as a denial thing is really, when you were saying you're interested in conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
There was my buddy Mike Cannon was doing a show about this, and everybody he was interviewing, there's some traumatic experience in every conspiracy theorist's life.
Yeah.
Where they're like, because there was a documentary I remember watching during COVID called Above Majestic, I think.
Okay.
And when I tell you the first 90 minutes is terrifying.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Alex Jones movies. It's terrifying until he gets to the final part where you're like, oh, okay, now I see it. Now you told me all these true things to get me to the part where there's a deep space program and only people who are schizophrenic are able to get into it. Like
yeah.
It's too many novels all bumped into one. Too many video games. Too many things. Like I think there's a lot of,
there's too much lore out there that could just get rolled right into or fantasy or fiction in general. Like
they go from
into the conspiracy.
Steps 1 through 7 make complete sense, and then there is no 8, 9, or 10. They're just boom right up to 11. It's they lose their minds, and it just goes way, way, way too far, and then they can't even scale it back. And then if you question anything, like they dig in deeper. You can't. No one's ever won an argument with a flat earther.
You're not going to move them. Mm-hmm. You're not going to move them. I mean, and in a way, it's almost like what's more logical, but still as stubborn, which like your belief in politics, right? Like people don't really move anyone. Well, like when you get planted in your beliefs, whether it's fantastical or it's something you just believe in, like a political point of view.
Conspiracy people and the gender people should be on the same, like the whole the gender identity movement. And conspiracy people, they should be like friends because nobody talks about they and them more than those groups of people.
I like the deep state conspiracy theorists.
That's real.
It's all right. So you think, not you, but like these, well, probably you. The ones that are like deep state started COVID because they didn't want Trump to hold his monster truck rallies anymore or whatever. And it's like, all right, so you're telling me, first off, have you ever been to a DMV? Like, have you ever seen what governments run?
We're bad at it.
We're not efficient at running.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Anything that you think is that deeply coordinated.
And you think
they don't have it together that much.
They unleashed this virus. The entire planet agreed to go along with it to stop Trump from running.
Right.
And
is the belief that the entire planet agreed, or is the belief that like all
the governments
work together?
Yeah.
Not like one was like, I'm just going to do it.
All these countries were like, yeah, we'll shut down just to piss off America.
Right. Yeah, we'll all just shut down and kill everyone.
There's definitely a deep state, but I was in the military for 6 years in the Navy.
Navy.
And it's Ken's a million times right on this, is that I've seen stuff where I'm like, that doesn't make why are we so bad at this?
Right.
Like we're literally supposed to be like you're in, you're the first line of defense for this one particular thing. But also, we have to throw our garbage over the side of the boat today because we forgot.
Things are still pretty fucking archaic in some ways.
Yeah, you're just like, listen, one of there's a urinal that flushes up on this particular so it's nuts on that stuff, man. Where it gets crazy is that we are bad at our jobs. The government's bad in general. I work for the government currently, and we do a lot of things backwards. Right. The intent is usually good. The idea of the deep state thing, the simplest explanation I've heard of it, because as soon as people say deep state, they do know that there's some moron out there that's going to be like, the lizard people.
Yeah, right.
But deep state is just people in positions that they hold for long durations of time that are unelected, that have undue power over the outcome of certain things.
Sure. Yeah, the idea that there are still people that you don't see that are kind of, maybe it's not an entire shadow government in that sense, but like 100%. There's people that hold power, that are moving levers that we're not seeing. Of course, right? Like there has to be 100%. More than what we're fucking seeing,
if you're
because
unelected.
We see a president get into fucking office and they're not really doing anything. Right? Like you see it. Like, they put people in place that do things, but like, it's not necessarily like, I feel like everyone thinks that hands change and the country moves so drastically when a president gets elected, right? But it's like, there's so much deeper than that fucking person in the Oval Office. There's so much more going on, and there's got to be so much more going on that we know about. But you hear deep state and you think.
It's the scare. I'll say this. It would be all those arguments. You'd hear less about the deep state if there wasn't like very obviously a Jim Henson production going on behind Biden's final couple of months here.
Right.
It's literally, I'm always waiting for Fozzie to just show up and just ask, like, what are we doing today?
Yeah. Well, that one is like that idea. And yeah, he'll still be, I'm trying to think when this is going to air. It's not going to air that far out. But that is like, that's like
oh, do you know when he's going to die?
No, I meant for him to be president. Yeah, because I'm one of them. Well, you know what? We actually don't. Now that you just said that, he could very well be dead by the time, or he could be dead now.
Dude, I swore he died. I swore we were about to walk in. In the morning, we went in for our break. There's a bagel place up the road from the shop, and we walked in, and everybody stopped. All the guys are stopped and staring at the TV, and it was the exact same thing that happened when Trump had gotten shot. So I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh shit, dude, Biden's dead. We're about to walk in and see, and it's just the guys watching the French volleyball team.
Yeah,
that was all it was. It was just guys staring at French women.
Well, France is making a lot of headways with the dick vault. They're like, what's going to happen with these people?
Was it the Italian guy? Ken had the joke about that one. Was it the Italian pole vaulter?
No, I thought it was French.
He was
French.
Yeah.
Oh god, see, if he had been circumcised, he would have cleared it.
We'll let your pull.
I was saying,
let your pull on that one. Yeah.
That dude was the biggest winner of the Olympics.
100%.
Yeah.
Went home with no medal, and the entire planet knows he has a hug.
Tune in next week for more wild conspiracies in part 2 of Tinfoil Hats with KP Burke.